Alright, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. I hope you guys had a great 4th of July long weekend. Enjoyed some time with your family and friends. The first story that I've got for you guys today. The latest physique update from Carlos Thomas Jr. We still don't know for sure a concrete date on what show he's doing. He told me he might do Chicago, which I think is probably in the cards based on some of the updates that he's posted so far, including this one, which I thought was one of the more impressive ones. We've seen a lot of his front shots because he's got very impressive quads. He's got a very impressive taper, and that's something that he just likes to show off. But in this update, not only did you get the front double bicep, which I think is one of his best poses, but you also got to see his side profile in the side chest, just showing off really how thickly, densely muscled he really is. I mean, this guy, he's the real deal. And if he was doing Chicago, that show is just 3 weeks away. Now, he said the other show he was considering is Tampa, which is a little bit further away. But I think it's conceivable that in this update, he could be 3 weeks out. It's kind of hard to tell in that side profile, his lower body, just the way that the light is hitting it. How dialed in his glutes and hamstrings are, because I think that would be pretty important at this point in his prep, if he was really 3 weeks out. And you can't really tell that from this picture, but you can tell he looks pretty crazy from the front and from the side. And like I've said in several videos, it's Carlos Thomas's pro debut and GoodVito's pro debut that are probably the two that I'm the most excited for. I think, honestly, the most excited for that I've been since Crizzo and Nick Walker's pro debuts. Those were two really big ones. These two, I think, are going to be really impressive when we do get to see them make their pro debuts finally in open bodybuilding. I think he's really going to be a factor, and I think, you know, it is going to be interesting to see because he did have to bow out of the New York Pro because of this health issue. So we don't know how bad that could impact how he looks on stage when he does make his pro debut this year, if that's adequate time or not for him to like fully let his body recoup from that. But he's looking pretty damn good in these updates that we've seen from him so far. So shout out to Carlos Thomas Jr. We did get another update from GoodVito here as he prepares to make his pro debut in September. This is a rear lat spread shot, and typically GoodVito posts a lot of front shots. He's got this really impressive front double, and similar to Carlos, he's got these massive legs. His quads look great from the front. He's got a pretty good V taper. But when you look at his back shot, you can see how complete he really is. And I honestly think that people are going to be surprised with how immediately dangerous GoodVito is, because I thought his conditioning when he earned his pro card was really, really good. But it's not really his conditioning that we're talking about. We're talking about his shape and just the amount of size that he carries and these crazy body parts, his arms, his quads. He's got like that standout wow factor that you just don't see every day. And we know that he can come in really good shape. So I'd say that's the big difference between him and Carlos is while when Carlos earned his pro card, he was in pretty good shape. But we haven't seen that just gnarly ripped conditioning from him yet. But I think with GoodVito, we've already kind of seen that. And now what we're looking forward to from GoodVito is a professional, bigger version of that conditioned package that he's already brought. And I honestly think he's going to be one of these guys that we've talked about for a couple years now, and then when he hits the pro stage, we're going to be like, see, that's why we've been talking about him all this time, even though he hadn't competed as a pro yet, because he had that potential, and this is why we're talking about him. So let me know in the comments down below, GoodVito or Carlos Thomas Jr., who do you think is going to have the more impressive pro debut this year? Now, next up in the news, this weekend's competition, the Portugal Pro, a.k.a. the Mr. Big Evolution Pro Show. A couple things to talk about with this show. Number one is men's open bodybuilding. We've got the competitor list where there's some interesting things here. Lionel Beyeke, Roman Fritz, Peter Clancier, Emir Omaragic, Alejandro Ori, Andrea Presti, Vlad Sukaruchko, Laszlo Samarica, and Christian Wolski. So I, for one, I'm very curious to see what Lionel Beyeke looks like here, because obviously the last time that we saw Lionel Beyeke on stage, it wasn't a great package. It almost really looked like he was doing a guest posing. It was that bad. And that was after we hadn't seen Lionel Beyeke in a number of years, despite him saying he's going to compete, he's going to compete. His name was showing up on all these different competitor lists, but he never showed up. Then when we finally did see him show up, he was definitely a shadow of his former self. Now, honestly, we haven't really seen much of anything from Lionel to really point us in one direction or another with how he's going to look. The last thing he posted on Instagram was shortly after the Arnold Classic Ohio. In March 13th, he posted this side chest shot. And that's really the only indicator we really have of what he's currently looking like. But I would think that his return to the stage after that last showing, I would think he wouldn't want to compete unless he was bringing a much more impressive package just for the sake of not embarrassing himself. I mean, if he shows up looking like how he looked the last time again, then I would say for all intents and purposes, he's done. So I think there's a possibility he could show up here and look pretty good and maybe do well, but I think based on his track record recently, I would be hesitant to make that assumption. But I think people really do forget how dangerous Lionel was when he was actually in shape in like the mid to early 2000 teens. I mean, he has a beautiful physique. Conditioning was always what he struggled with, but just genetics and structure, and he just has a really pleasing physique. And at one point in time, it was a very dangerous one. So as far as this weekend in Portugal goes, that's one thing that I'm looking for here. And looking at this lineup, you've got some fairly impressive international names here. You've got the usual suspects, Peter Clancy, Emer Omaragic, Andrea Presti, Roman Fritz. We saw all these guys compete recently. Vlad Sukaruchko is really one of the big names that I'm looking at here because he's been posting some stuff lately where he just looks crazy. The latest update that I saw of him was 5 days ago, and he just looked crazy big, crazy peeled. I mean, this guy, he is a freak. So when I see this lineup, that's a name that really stands out to me. Obviously, Peter and Emir, they stand out to me as well. Well, I would like to see some more people jump in this lineup. I mean, some of the people that we just saw compete at that Orlando show, Hassan, for example, or even Stanimal, who was third there. I think they would be well served to do a show like this. And I wonder now if after that Orlando Pro, maybe we don't see Hassan compete for a while. Maybe we see him go back to the drawing board. Or I think if he jumped in a lineup like this would be a good show for him. And it was an interesting situation with him and Phil Klahar at the Orlando Pro. If you guys didn't know, I'll show you guys the scorecards here. It was what they called a relative tie, which is a tie broken by relative placing. So this was a bit confusing to some people, but after asking around, the description that I got of what this means is it was a tie at prejudging. So the relative placing just meant whoever won at the finals, whoever looked better at the finals, which is the most relative or recent showing, that's who won the show. So a tie at prejudging broken by finals, which honestly is extremely rare. You rarely ever have a tie like that in bodybuilding. Typically, I would say 9 times out of 10, maybe even higher odds than that, the winner's already determined at prejudging. And then there's also the very rare case where you would have kind of a backwards thing where someone's winning at prejudging, then they look so bad, and then the second place guy looks so good at the finals that guy ends up winning when he wasn't winning at prejudging. So that happens, but a tie is pretty rare. So anyway, I point that out to say maybe Hassan won't be competing in the near future, and maybe he won't be trying for the Olympia because he's had kind of a rough go these last 2 shows. Like I said, I think he looked much better in Toronto than he looked in Orlando, and I can see people were still surprised that Phil beat him in Orlando, but I can see why he did. Phil was just overall sharper, and he's a big guy. Hassan's conditioning, I felt like, was pretty off compared to what we saw in Toronto, and I think that's why they didn't give it to him. But a close second to Ian, then a tie here at prejudging that didn't go his way. He's got to be pretty discouraged right now, but I would like to see him in a lineup like this Portugal Pro. Now, the other big aspect of this Portugal Pro that a lot of people are looking forward to is the classic physique portion, because we're going to have the pro debut here of Stephane Matala, a.k.a. Mr. Unchained, a.k.a. Stephane NFC on Instagram. And we're going to find out whether or not he delivers on all the hype he's been getting on some of these viral posing videos where people are comparing him to the likes of Ramon Dino, saying he's a future classic physique Mr. Olympia. This is where we will find out for sure whether or not the social media version that we've seen of him is going to deliver on an actual professional stage. And not only that, but this show will be kind of the determining factor of whether or not we see him at the Olympia. This will be his ticket. And honestly, I'm looking at the competitor list for Classic, and I just don't recognize the majority of these names. So I don't think it's that deep of a classic physique lineup in terms of heavy hitter potential top 10 Olympia guys. So he might have a pretty good shot here. And I think this would be a pretty good indicator of how good or not good he is. If he can't win or place at a show with a lineup like this, then I guess that would mean maybe the hype wasn't justified. But if he is able to win, then he's showing us, well, maybe there is something to this guy. Honestly, I've got a pretty good feeling about him. I think he's going to do well here, but only time will tell, and we're going to find out this weekend. Now Next up in the news, in men's physique news, the most recent physique updates from Jeremy Buendia, who's going to be making his return to the men's physique Olympia stage after a pretty long hiatus. And you guys know, I don't follow men's physique that closely. I do typically watch the men's physique Olympia and the men's physique Arnold, and I don't cover men's physique very much at all, but this is something I'm interested in watching. It's just seeing, because there's so much conversation with men's physique about how the standard may or may not have changed over time, and for a division that hasn't been around for an exceptionally long time, that's a pretty significant proposal that the standards have changed in such a relatively short time. So Jeremy Buendia, obviously a very different physique than what's winning right now. Your current men's physique Olympia champion from 2022 is Aaron Banks, who's a much taller, just much more streamlined look, I think, than what we saw from Jeremy Buendia. Jeremy's a little bit shorter, well, significantly shorter, and he's like a more densely muscled, more of a bodybuilder look, I think. So I am actually pretty interested to see these two guys, if they're even in the same call-out. Maybe the standard has changed that much, but I'm interested to see just kind of, it's almost a battle of two different eras of men's physique, and I think it's going to be something that's going to be interesting to watch play out on the Olympia stage. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Who do you think is going to come out on top? Is Jeremy Buendia going to be a factor here, or is Aaron Banks going to retain, or potentially neither of them? Could we have a brand new men's physique Olympia champ that changes the standard even more than it maybe already has? Let me know in the comments down below. That's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at NickStrengthPower. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.